I've spent 30 years hunting, but what I found yesterday will haunt me forever. The sun hung low in the sky, spilling its golden light across the dense woods. Every creak of the branches felt amplified, every rustle of leaves a warning. After decades in the great outdoors, you'd think Bob would have seen it all. But yesterday, he stumbled upon something that sent chills racing down his spine. It was supposed to be just another day, just another hunt. Instead, it became a nightmare that twisted his stomach and left him gasping for breath. Out there, under the thick canopy where shadows danced like phantoms, he found a gnarled tree with bark that seemed to writhe like a living thing. The tree wasn't like any he'd encountered. It was darker, almost sickly. The air grew cold as he approached, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. A faint whisper danced through the leaves, something that sounded almost human. Bob felt a lump in his throat as he squinted into the twisted roots. Was it just the wind? Or had he stirred something ancient? His heart raced as he noticed markings on the trunk, letters, jagged as broken glass, spelling a name he recognized but couldn't fathom why it was there. An overwhelming sense of foreboding washed over him. The wolves howled in the distance, a chorus of eerie lament that matched the pounding of his heart. What if it was true? What if those urban legends, the stories told around campfires, had roots right here? It couldn't be, could it? He took a step back, struggling to catch his breath, eyes darting around as if the forest itself was watching him. The tension hung like a thick fog. Just then, he noticed a glimmer near the base of the tree. An object partially buried in the leaves, glistening with an unnatural sheen. Bob knelt down, heart pounding, adrenaline surging through his veins. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes on him, pushing him forward. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Bob's fingers trembled as he brushed away the leaves. What lay beneath sent a jolt of fear through him. There, half buried in the earth, was an amulet, strange symbols etched into its surface, pulsing with a strange heat as if it had just been plucked from the heart of a volcano. It hummed with an energy that felt alive, too alive. A sudden noise behind him made him spin around. The world went silent. Every creature had fallen mute, like the forest itself was holding its breath, and then, piercing through the quiet, a wicked laugh rang out, echoing off the trees like thunder. It sent a wave of dread crashing over him, and it was then he understood: the hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning. Something was waiting in the darkness, and it wanted him. What he found yesterday would indeed haunt him, but what he had unleashed could be far worse. Bob's heart raced as the echo of that laugh faded, replaced by the rustling of branches, creaking softly in the sudden tension. He blinked, trying to shake off the images that filled his mind: snarling teeth, shadowy figures lurking just out of sight. The amulet felt hotter in his palm, its weight both comforting and foreboding. He clutched it tight, unwilling to let it go, as if releasing it would summon whatever presence waited. With every instinct screaming to run, Bob's feet felt like lead. His world had shifted, the familiar woods had morphed into something sinister. A gut-wrenching realization hit him: this laughter wasn't just a sound. It was a call, an invitation to something wicked. He peered into the underbrush, the shadows thickening with each passing moment as the sun's light dimmed. "Who's there?" Bob shouted, his voice coming out stronger than he felt. The silence was immediate and heavy, wrapping around him like an oppressive blanket. The only answer he received was the soft, slinking movement of something unseen, circling him, waiting. He could hear his own breathing quicken like a metronome marking time in a death dance, summoning every ounce of bravery. Bob inched closer to the tree again. With the amulet in hand, he studied the markings more intently. They seemed to pulse, almost breathing along with him. They were letters, otherworldly words that taunted him with an urgency he couldn't comprehend. As he traced the rough edges with his fingertips, the ground beneath him shifted, as if responding to his touch, then, without warning, the air turned electric. A deep growl erupted from the shadows, a sound so primal it froze him in place. The hairs on his arms stood on end as the growl morphed into a chilling voice that seemed to emerge from the depths of the earth itself. "You dare disturb the sacred?" It roared, sending vibrations down his spine. "You have awakened what should remain buried." Bob stumbled back, his heart thumping violently against his ribcage. The shadows coalesced, swirling into shapes that reached toward him with long, twisted fingers. He couldn't breathe. Panic clawed its way up his throat. He had to escape. In one frantic movement, Bob turned and ran, adrenaline fueling his legs as he dashed through the underbrush. Branches whipped past him, sharp and unforgiving, as he careened deeper into the woods, not knowing where he was heading, only knowing that he had to get away. Behind him, the laughter echoed again, mocking and triumphant. "Fear not, hunter. We've only just begun." The voice taunted, distortion twisting its tone, making it unrecognizable yet horrifyingly familiar. Bob's mind raced. What did it mean? Was it a warning or a promise? He skidded around a tree, his breaths turning ragged, desperation clawing at the edges of reason. The amulet pulsed in his pocket, a heartbeat that felt connected to the laughter chasing him. A sudden crack from behind sent him spinning. He had to face whatever it was. He would have to confront the darkness head-on, or it would consume him. As he turned, he felt a knot in his stomach. What awaited him in that stillness, beyond the shadows? He took a resolute step forward, preparing for whatever came next. And then, from the thickest part of the woods, a pair of gleaming eyes locked onto his. The hunt had only just begun, and the line between hunter and hunted had blurred. What had he unleashed, and could he survive it? The eyes watched him with a predatory intensity, glimmering like shards of glass, sharp and unyielding. Bob felt a flood of nausea wash over him. The air thickened with dread, and he was acutely aware of the pounding of his heart, a war drum signaling his imminent doom. Whatever that gaze belonged to, it wasn't just another creature hiding in the dark. It was something ancient, something that thrived on fear. Bob's breath quickened. The amulet in his pocket throbbed against him, its warmth a mocking contrast to the chill that seeped into his bones. "What do you want?" he croaked, his voice trembling like a leaf caught in the wind. The laughter that answered him was soft, sinister, replaying in his mind like a reel stuck on repeat. "Your very essence, brave one," the voice whispered, curling around him like smoke. "You will be the latest trophy in this eternal game, but first, a taste." Bob's resolve hardened. He was not just prey. "I'm not afraid of you," he yelled, trying to summon strength from deep within. With determination, he crouched low, bargaining with time, waiting for the right moment to spring into action. With a sudden flick of movement, the figure stepped into the dim light, revealing its grotesque form. It was humanoid, but twisted. Skin stretched impossibly tight over bone, its limbs long and contorted at strange angles. Its face was a mass of shifting shadows, but the eyes glowed with a wicked glee. Bob's instincts screamed at him to flee, to turn and run as he had done moments ago. But he wouldn't. Not this time. Determined, Bob raised the amulet, its glow casting eerie patterns onto the forest floor. The figure recoiled slightly, and for a heartbeat, the air felt lighter. "What is that?" the creature hissed. "It's not just a trinket," Bob spat, emboldened by sudden inspiration. "It's my shield. You may think you can hunt me, but I won't go down without a fight." The woods seemed to hold their breath. An unsettling silence draped over everything, as if the very trees were waiting for the next move. In the stillness, doubt crept in. Did he really believe that? The creature chuckled, a deep, throaty sound that rattled Bob's confidence. Brave words for one caught in a snare of his own making. it replied, cruelty lacing each syllable. You've awakened dark forces, child. And they hunger. They will feed upon your fears. Anger flared in Bob's chest. I'm not your dinner. I'm no one's sacrifice. He shouted, drawing on whatever strength he could muster. In that moment, he pushed back against his own terror. Taking a step forward, he thrust the amulet toward the creature. Light flared from it, illuminating the darkened trees around them, flickering like fireflies desperately trying to keep the dark at bay. The creature stumbled backward, its eyes momentarily dimming from the brilliance. Bob seized the opening to close the gap, drawing a deep breath, feeling the weight of his own existence, the fight to survive soaring within him. He half expected the ground to swallow him whole, or for the shadows to leap up and drag him back down. But he wouldn't allow it. Not now. Come on. Face me. He challenged, his voice unwavering in the face of horror. The creature hissed, regaining its composure, its twisted grin widening with malevolent glee. Oh, we will play, brave one. But know this, the hunt has only begun and you will learn that mere courage has its limits. Before Bob could respond, the forest erupted into chaos. Trees shook, leaves rustled violently, and shadows broke free from their confines, encircling him like a swarm. The sense of dread amplified, squeezing his heart. Where would he turn? What darkness lay in wait? Bob felt the pulse of the amulet awaken new fears, new realities. As the shadows encroached, each heartbeat echoing the promise of a confrontation ahead, the question loomed like a cloud: could he uncover the truth behind the amulet and shift the balance, or was he destined to be a pawn in a far more sinister game? And in the heart of that maelstrom, with eyes watching from every dark corner, Bob took a deep breath. Steeling himself for the showdown that awaited him. He had to discover the truth before it consumed him entirely. The shadows flickered and danced, their movements erratic as if laughter echoed in the depths of the darkness. Each rustle of leaves sent adrenaline racing through Bob's veins. He was not the only one afraid. Fear itself was alive here, and it bared its teeth. Come on, Bob. He urged himself, you're tougher than this. With renewed courage, he steadied the amulet in his grasp. Its light shimmered like sunlight through turbulent waters. In this moment, it felt powerful. He could sense its warmth radiating against the creeping chill, emboldening him to pierce through the haze of fear surrounding him. Show yourself. He yelled into the void, surprising even himself with the fierceness in his tone. The air felt electric as he summoned every ounce of his will to confront whatever monstrosity awaited. A guttural laugh erupted from the depths of the shadows, and for an instant, the darkness twisted and narrowed around him, the trees bowing as though they were a floor crowd welcoming a performer. You think your light can fend us off? The creature sneered, its voice writhing under Bob's skin. We thrive in your fear, in your pain. Show me your dread. Bob felt a tremor run through him, a moment of panic, memories flooding back. The faces of lost friends, moments of failure, all the doubts that had ever haunted him bubbled to the surface. No! He shouted, shaking his head violently as if to dismiss the thoughts. He wouldn't surrender now. Not to this ancient horror. He could feel the amulet pulsate, its rhythm syncing with his heartbeat, and in that blink of an eye, a thought struck him: if the creature fed on fear, maybe he could turn the tables. Yeah, I'm scared, he spat, letting raw truth spill from his lips. But fear won't break me. The shadows shivered, momentarily losing their grip on his mind. What a delicious concoction of bravery and fear, the creature crooned, its tone shifting from amusement to something far more insidious. Let us taste your resolve or your despair, whichever comes first. Bob narrowed his eyes, refusing to yield. He took a step closer, engulfed in a surge of reckless daring. He raised the amulet high. The light flashed brighter, illuminating not just his surroundings but the dark memories that had haunted him for so long. Moments of despair morphed into the fuel for his strength. With a sudden surge of courage, he screamed into the dark, I challenge you. What have you ever conquered that I cannot overcome? The air thickened with tension, and a heartbeat later, the shadows recoiled. Could it be? Did he see a flicker of fear cross the creature's twisted face? The laughter quieted, revealing a deep silence, the forest bracing for something monumental. It would seem you have found a spark of defiance, the creature replied, voice dripping with a sinister charm. But don't mistake courage for immunity. You've only begun to scratch the surface of this game we play. Bob's gut twisted as various figures wrestled through the treetops, looming just beyond the reach of the amulet's glow. They danced like puppets on unseen strings, hungry for a taste of the fear he had just dredged up. In that moment, the clarity hit him. This wasn't just a fight against an entity, it was a battle waged within himself, against every doubt, every moment he'd been labeled weak. The true confrontation lay beyond mere survival. Bring it on, he breathed, his voice steadier now but still laced with sharp edges. Let us see if you can unleash my terror or if I will conquer it. As the shadows charged forth, Bob felt the power of the amulet surge within him. He positioned himself, ready for whatever lay ahead. But as he inhaled, filling his lungs with the amulet's energy, the dark figures advanced with an unsettling intelligence, whispering promises of polish and pain. And then, just as he was about to fully unleash his light, the ground beneath him shifted, a rift opened, all-consuming, darkness swirling, threatening to unravel everything he thought he had claimed. Could he withstand the obliteration? Did he truly possess the strength to push back against ancient forces? As the void loomed, ready to swallow him whole, Bob realized the stakes were higher than he had imagined. The battle had only just begun. What truths lay buried in the shadows, waiting to be unearthed? Would he emerge as a victor or become a mere flicker of another lost soul? Bob felt the ground tremble beneath his feet as the rift widened, tendrils of shadow curling around his ankles like snakes eager to drag him down into unfathomable depths. Heart pounding, he instinctively gripped the amulet tighter, channeling its warmth through his fingers, willing it to guide him through this chaos. Fight back! He shouted into the void, though his voice wavered, a whisper on the edge of a scream. The shadows paused, as if considering his words, skimming the surface of his fear like a stone skipping across a lake. Suddenly, the darkness surged, raking at him with icy fingers. It felt like 100 voices screaming at once, echoing his insecurities, twisting his own thoughts against him. Memories flooded in his first failed hunt, the cruel laughter of those who doubted him, his father's disappointed glare. Waves of doubt crashed over him, each one laced with the acrid taste of despair. Stop! He yelled, teeth clenched. He refused to let them take him down that path again. With a fierce resolve, he shouted, I am more than my past. The shadows stopped, a collective pause that hung heavy in the air. The creature watched, its twisted face forming into something resembling intrigue. Do you think shouting can change your fate, little human? It hissed, a slithering sensation that slithered into his ears. You're still just flesh, weak and so easily broken. Bob felt a fire ignite within him. You think it's my flesh you're dealing with? You underestimate what's inside. He took a step forward, battling the darkness that sought to tighten around him. The amulet pulsed like a heartbeat, stemming the tide of shadows that threatened to engulf him. With each step, he found his footing firming. Instead of retreating in fear, he pushed back against the darkness, remembering the strength of his determination. I am not my failures. The words tore from him like a battle cry, hanging in the air as if daring the dark to respond. Bold words for a lost soul, the creature retorted, its eyes narrowing into slits of malice. It waved a hand, and the shadows shifted, reforming into grotesque shapes, a monstrous amalgamation of his hidden fears and nightmares, all twisted into nightmarish creatures with glowing, accusing eyes. Time seemed to slow as he took in the grotesquerie, the figure of a young boy, shivering alone in the rain, the ghost of their laughter morphing into cries of rejection. Each creature an echo of Bob's worst moments. Panic bubbled within him, threatening to crack his newfound courage, but then he remembered the warmth of the amulet against his palm, illuminating his path in the dark. You don't have the power over me. he shouted, feeling the hesitance in his voice clashing against the rising tide of fear. He focused all his energy, letting memories of love and the small victories surfaces. With a primal yell, he swung the amulet forward, releasing a wave of light that pushed against the shadows like an invisible shield. The creatures recoiled, howling as the light pierced their smoky forms. The light expanded, illuminating the rift around him, revealing a landscape marred by forgotten pain and regret. But as the darkness shrank back, the creatures whispered still, their insidious words crawling beneath his skin. "You can't escape what you are, the void will always find you." Bob's heart thundered in response as the rift grew wider, threatening to swallow him whole, threatening to test his newfound hope against a void that had become almost palpable, a hunger that wanted to pull him deeper. Just a little more. He urged himself, drawing strength from the light, willing it to break through once and for all. But just when he thought victory was within reach, the shadows lashed out fiercely, retaliating with a fury that mocked his resolve, a cacophony of the past crashing against his heart one last time. "Your story isn't done yet, Bob," the creature hissed as the ground beneath him cracked further. "Let us see how you handle your greatest fear yourself." With every ounce of power left, he pushed back. But would it be enough? Was he truly ready to confront what lay hidden in the recesses of his soul? As the shadows bore down on him, angry and relentless, the amulet flickered uncertainly. The battle was far from over, and Bob was caught in the throes of the storm. What awaited him in that final descent? Would the remnants of his spirit rise to face the gathering darkness, or would he tumble into the abyss? Bob braced himself, the air thick with a tangible darkness that seemed to pulse in time with his racing heart. The shadows around him shrieked, a symphony of torment that clawed at his sanity. With each scream, each roar of lost regrets echoing through the void, the tendrils tightened, trying to reclaim him. Fear twisted in his gut, but he pushed it aside, fueled by the memory of every small victory, the laugh of a friend, the warmth of a loving embrace. "Just breathe," he whispered, grounding himself in the light of the amulet. He focused on the warmth, letting it wrap around him like a protective shield. "I won't be your puppet anymore." The words erupted from his throat, raw and desperate. The creature shrieked, its form shimmering as if the light threatened to unravel it. "Defiance will only make the shadows stronger. You think you're fighting me, but you're really just fighting yourself." The shadows surged again, forming into grotesque figures that seemed to whisper secrets of his failures and fears. Bob could see their faces, each one a nightmarish blend of his worst memories. They were all there, the boy in the rain, the teacher's cruel critique, the sight of his father's anger. His breath quickened as they loomed closer, reminders of every time he had faltered, but as fear gripped him, he recalled the advice of his late mother. "Strength isn't absence of weakness, it's embracing it." He steadied his breath, channeling every fragment of that advice, every moment of hope he had fought for. "I won't let you decide who I am." Bob thrust the amulet forward with fierce determination. Light erupted from it, blinding and pure, each ray of luminescence a sword striking against the darkness. The creatures cried out, screeching in agony as they faded back, shadows swirling like smoke in a gust of wind. But as the dazzling light enveloped the rift, a terrible truth unfurled. He understood now: these shadows were reflections of himself. They had taken root in guilt and despair, all those times he had felt worthless or unloved. The realization pierced him with a cold sting. He couldn't simply push them away. No, he had to confront them, to embrace each part that had been cast aside in his quest for acceptance. Suddenly, from the heart of the light, a new figure emerged, the young boy he once was. He stood there, trembling and vulnerable, eyes wide with fear. Bob recognized that raw innocence, the hopes he had before life had chipped them away. "I'm sorry," the boy mouthed silently, tears shimmering in his eyes. "No, don't be. It's not your fault," Bob choked out. This was it. He understood now: the boy was a part of him, not an enemy to defeat. He needed to protect that fragile hope, not destroy it. "Come here," Bob called softly, holding out his hand to the younger version of himself, feeling the warmth from the amulet intensify. The shadows hesitated, drawn back by the strength of that connection. "I'm here for you. We'll be okay together." But the creature roared, its voice a cacophony of rage and denial. "You cannot win. You belong to the darkness, and it will consume you both." Bob clenched his jaw, heart thumping. The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty, a fork point in the battle for his very soul. Would uniting with the boy fill the rift and seal the darkness out? Or was it too late, already consumed by the depths of despair? As he reached toward the boy, shadows surged again, threatening to rip them apart. "Do you really want this?" The creature taunted, darkness swirling and writhing. "Are you ready to face what lies in the depths of your heart?" Bob's grip tightened, determination sparking a fire in his chest. "I choose to face it." The shadows pulled back, swirling in fury, but as the boy took his hand, the light burst forth again, expanding with an intensity that ignited the surrounding darkness. Together, they shimmered, a brilliant beacon standing against the tide of despair. As the shadows thrashed wildly, Bob felt the certainty deepen within him. He was worth fighting for, worth protecting. But would this combined strength be enough to dismantle the darkness? As the rift trembled, a deafening roar echoed around them. What chaos awaited them, and could they truly emerge unscathed from the maelstrom? A blinding light engulfed them, pushing back the shadows like waves retreating before a tide. Bob stood firm, hand in hand with his younger self, feeling the warmth of their bond melt away the icy grip of despair. Fear flickered in the depths of his heart, but the innocence in the boy's eyes anchored him, reminding him of what was at stake. "Stay close," he urged, breaking through the cacophony of screams that seemed to emanate from the darkness itself. The creature, writhing in fury, clawed at the edges of the light, desperate to reclaim its hold. "You think this will save you?" it bellowed, voice sharp and mocking. "What about all the moments you've buried?" Each taunt pierced Bob like a bullet. Memories he had tucked away, his mother's disappointment, laughter turning into mockery, and friendships twisted into betrayal flickered threateningly at the edges of the light. He could see them starting to take form again, palpably real, pulling at him like chains. "No! Not this time!" Bob shouted, clenching his fist around the amulet, focusing on the boy beside him. "Every dark moment shaped me, yes. But they don't define me." The amulet pulsed, radiating a fierce glow that made the shadows recoil. Bob felt a surge of strength, as if the light had tapped into the collective hope and love that he had fought so hard to preserve. He turned his gaze to the boy. "You are a part of me. Together, we are stronger than any lie." The boy nodded, his trembling transforming into resolve. They squeezed each other's hands tighter, as the shadows pressed closer, now raging like a storm. "Embrace it!" Bob shouted, pushing the amulet forward again. "Embrace every part. The anger, the pain, the fears I will not hide." With those words, the light exploded outward, engulfing the shadows in its brightness. The grotesque forms shrieked as they came face to face with the very truths Bob had long avoided. The echoes of his past screamed with clarity, but instead of fear, he felt something else: renewed purpose. "I see you. I see all of you," he bellowed, determination lacing his voice. Light burst like fireworks from the core of the amulet, showering down over the darkness. Suddenly, the creature twisted and writhed, its form breaking apart as the light fractured the shadows. "No! I will not be defeated!" It howled in pain and fury. Bob felt the room shake, every particle vibrating with energy. Yet he felt a sense of freedom blossom within him as the truth resonated. As the darkness shattered, releasing cries of anguish, Bob caught a glimpse of something else: a swirling vortex opening wide, a path that pulsed with raw energy. It beckoned to him, promising answers, a journey deeper into the heart of his fears and pain. "What is that?" the boy whispered, eyes wide with a mix of dread and curiosity. It's where we have to go," Bob replied, heart racing as he felt its pull. But we have to face it together. We have to take the leap. The shadows began to mend, swirling remnants coiling around the outskirts of the pulsing light. They flickered ominously, waiting to reclaim what they had lost. "Are you ready?" Bob asked, meeting the boy's gaze, the bond between them now a thread of hope. "Yes," the boy exclaimed, brimming with the innocence he had once thought lost. Landing one last gaze on the retreating shadows, Bob inhaled deeply. "Together, we'll unravel this once and for all." Hand in hand, they stepped toward the vortex, the pulse thumping in unison with their hearts. The darkness screamed, angry that it could be left behind, and then the ground trembled beneath them. As they crossed the threshold, a blinding flash slammed down, and everything around them lifted away like dust in the wind. What awaited them on the other side? Would they find clarity or yet another layer of torment waiting to be uncovered? The light enveloped them entirely, the world around them evaporating into a swirling chaos of sound and motion. Heartbeats thundered in Bob's ears, each pulse resonating with the raw energy of the vortex as he and the boy hurtled into the unknown. When they landed, it was with a jolt. The ground felt solid yet quaked beneath their feet as if it breathed along with them. They stood in a vast, shimmering expanse, the air thick with ribbons of light and shadow dancing like spirits in the night. Bob squinted against the luminous haze, struggling to catch a glimpse of their surroundings. "Where are we?" the boy asked, tugging at Bob's sleeve, fear creeping back into his voice. "I don't know." Bob's throat felt tight. They had crossed over, but now they stood in a realm that seemed to straddle the line between reality and illusion. Memories floated around them, some familiar, others twisted into grotesque forms. He could hear whispers, too soft to understand, but heavy with emotion, regret, pain, longing. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the smog, a tall silhouette with shifting features, veiled in shadows. Bob's heart raced, recognizing the form of the creature. "You thought you could escape me?" it crooned, the voice laced with malice. "This place is my domain." "No!" Bob shouted, stepping protectively in front of the boy. "You don't control us." The creature laughed, a sound that chilled Bob to the bone. "Control? Oh, this isn't about control. It's about the truth. Here, in this space, your past reaches out to touch you. What have you hidden? What have you lost?" Bob felt an icy grip upon his heart as dark memories slithered from the shadows, each one demanding his attention. The rotten core of unresolved grief, failed relationships, and lost opportunities threatened to resurface. "Focus on the light," he urged the boy, trying to maintain their bond while his own resolve wavered. "Remember what we fought for." Yet the shadows drew closer. They twisted into familiar shapes, an old friend's face twisted in betrayal, a lost love haunting his nightmares. Each specter whispered of failures that stung like fresh wounds, and Bob felt himself wavering, uncertain. "Embrace it." The boy's small voice broke through his turmoil, echoing Bob's earlier words. "It's okay to feel." Shocked, Bob turned to the boy. "But what if it hurts? What if I can't bear it? If we don't face it, it'll keep haunting us," the boy replied, eyes shining with conviction that burned brighter than the surrounding shadows. "Together." Feeling the boy's unwavering courage wash over him, Bob steeled himself. "Together," he echoed, drawing strength from the bond they shared. The shadows curled tighter around them, but with a roar, Bob thrust the amulet into the air. The light exploded, radiating outward. Shadows screamed, but this time it was not a sound of defeat, it was a release. Memories surged forward, a rush of love, laughter, sorrow, and hope. Bob felt their weight wash over him like cleansing rain, each moment carrying its own significance. He inhaled deeply, letting the warmth envelop him, but as he embraced the surge, amidst the chaos, something flickered at the edge of his vision, a figure, stark against the swirling shadows. It was a woman. Bob's heart sank. He knew her. The one whose absence had carved a void deep within him. Mom?" he whispered, voice trembling, the figure's features sharpened, her sorrowful eyes locking onto his. "You've been hiding from your truth, Bob." Just as quickly as she appeared, shadows erupted around her, threatening to swallow her whole. "No!" he shouted, reaching toward her, but the creature's laughter echoed, a cruel reminder of the choices he had made. "Can you save what you never found?" it hissed, joyfully pulling on the strands of despair woven through his heart. Desperation clawed at Bob as he fought against the creeping tendrils of darkness. "I want to lose you again." But just then, without warning, the ground trembled violently beneath their feet, and the fabric of reality began to tear. Bob braced himself as violent distortions ripped through the air. The familiar looming danger pressing in once more. "Together!" the boy shouted, pulling on Bob's hand tightly. "We can face it. Together!" Bob echoed, mustering every ounce of will within him. But the rift widened, creating a chaotic void, prompting a burning question deep in his heart: would they be strong enough to confront the shadows that threatened to consume not only them but everything they loved? With uncertainty swirling around them, they braced for the next challenge, steeling themselves for the truth that awaited. Bob's heart hammered wildly against his chest as the rift widened, unleashing a gust of cold air that knocked them backward. The vibrant light surrounding them warped, twisting into something darker, more sinister. The boy stumbled but steadied himself, gripping Bob's hand with a fierce determination that sent warmth flooding through Bob's veins. "Stay close!" Bob shouted, his voice cutting through the turbulence around them. In that moment, a blinding light flared from the amulet, illuminating the swirling shadows, and for a heartbeat, everything stilled. The creatures of despair seemed to hesitate, their malignant faces twisting in confusion. Bob seized the fleeting opportunity to push forward. "Come on!" he urged, dragging the boy away from the rift that threatened to swallow them whole. They maneuvered through an eerie landscape littered with fragments of forgotten dreams, memories that hung in the air like dust motes, glimmering past their reach. Yet, the whispers intensified. Voices rose like a tempest, clamoring for attention: the old friend who had abandoned him, the love he had neglected, and the child he could never seem to save. Each call resonated with a sharpness that pricked at his mind, urging him to listen. Bob squeezed his eyes shut, fighting against the crescendo. "No! You don't control me!" he screamed, shaking his head violently as if he could rid himself of the haunting sounds. "Not alone," the boy implored, eyes wide with fear but unyielding. "We need to face them together." With a deep breath, Bob looked back at the rift, the swirling chaos within it now taking the shape of his mother's face, pale and lost. "Mom!" he gasped, the name hanging momentarily in the air before being sucked into the darkness. The realization struck him like a physical blow: she was trapped in the very thing he feared confronting. Coursing through him was a desperate need, not only to save her but to reclaim the part of himself that had been missing since her disappearance. "Together!" Bob shouted again, louder this time, channeling all his resolve. "We can't run anymore." As they stepped closer to the rift, light refracted off the amulet, creating a prism of color that pulsed in rhythm with their hearts. The shadows hissed and writhed, retreating for a brief moment. Fueled by newfound determination, Bob grasped the boy's hand tighter, the connection between them more profound than before, and then, to his wide-eyed horror, the shadows surged forward. The laughter of the creature echoed again, but this time it felt weaker, fading as if it were running out of breath. "Face your truth, Bob!" the monstrous figure shrieked, stretching its elongated shadowy arms towards them. "What you're running from can't be hidden here." Bob's mind raced, crashing together memories of laughter and pain, moments lost and unspoken words. It was all there, swirling in a chaotic dance, but behind the fear and turmoil lay hope. "Mom! I'm not afraid!" he called again, summoning everything he had. "I've found you, and I want to let you disappear again." In that instant, he felt warmth washing over him, a glow not just from the amulet but from something deep within himself. It surged forward, pushing the shadows back, laying bare the truth he had long denied. Love and regret intertwined in a chaotic embrace, but it was the love that pulsed strongest in his veins. The rift trembled again, and instead of pulling apart, it began to bind together. Bob closed his eyes and focused, forcing himself to confront every shadow in his heart, the wrongs he had committed and the love he had lost. Together. The boy shouted, his voice ringing out like a lifeline. Bob opened his eyes, meeting the boy's steady gaze, and felt a fierce wave of solidarity. Together, they pushed against the darkness with pure, unfiltered emotion. Light sparked around them, tearing through the ensnaring shadows, but just as they felt a flicker of victory, another figure appeared. Not in the rift but looming behind them, jealousy and hatred emanating from its very being. Bob's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the face, the last person he expected to see, now resolute in their unforgiving glare. How naive, the figure taunted, stepping forward, the shadows whispering names of betrayal, to think you can reclaim the past. Fear clawed back at Bob's heart, leaving him a flurry of thoughts. Could he really confront the darkness without losing everything he held dear? As he faced the specter of his past, now more vivid than ever, he felt the weight of the moment press down on him. They were standing at a precipice, one decision away from either liberation or annihilation. Would he crumble under the weight of the truth, or could they push through the darkness that would stop at nothing to claim them both? The darkness twisted around them, swirling like a tempest of regrets and fears, every screech and cry echoing inside Bob's mind. He stood at the precipice, heart pounding, breath coming in ragged gasps. The familiar figure before him wore a smirk that dripped with contempt, every ounce of confidence radiated from it, taunting him. It was the embodiment of his worst moments, the friend lost to bitterness, the sister hurt by his silence. "You can't change the past, Bob," it echoed, voice dripping with mockery. "You think you can just step into the light and leave me behind? I'm a part of you." "No!" Bob shouted, fists clenched around the amulet. The warm thrum beneath his fingers felt like a heartbeat, a steady reminder that he wasn't alone. The boy beside him breathed heavily, sensing the weight of history pressing in. "We share a name, but I refuse to let you shape who I am anymore." The shadows pulsed, hungry to reclaim their territory, but Bob's feet felt steadier, and with that steadiness came a fierce determination. "You're right, I can't change the past. But I can change what I do with it," he declared, each word stronger than the last. A low growl reverberated around him, shadows tightening, shifting like a serpent ready to strike. "Then let us see if you're brave enough to confront the truth," it howled, the very air vibrating with its malice. "Bring it on," Bob replied, locking his gaze onto the spectral figure, ready to fight. The amulet sparked brighter, the light fending off the encroaching darkness. The boy squeezed his hand tighter, his courage seeping into Bob like lifeblood. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward, transforming into a storm of thorns and barbs, striking at Bob's vulnerabilities. Memories of betrayal, loss, guilt surged forth, each biting deeper than the last. Bob felt his heart constrict, the familiar pang of despair threatening to topple him. "Remember when you chose hunting over family? When you thought you could escape? You have never been enough." The figure taunted, voice dark and unyielding. Bob felt a fissure of doubt crack open within him. But then he recalled the warmth of his mother's smile, the laughter shared with friends who had stood by him. "I've made mistakes. But I won't drown in them. I'm ready to face everything I've buried." His voice thundered, resonating within the vastness of the expanse. The shadows recoiled, hesitating. "Feel like a hero, do you?" It laughed, but there was a tremor of uncertainty beneath the mockery. Perhaps the cracks were beginning to show. The boy tugged at him, eyes bright with determination. "Together. We'll face them, Bob." With a throbbing heart, Bob raised the amulet high, channeling every ounce of defiance within him. "You will not defeat us. I am not my past." The light flared, radiating fiercely, illuminating their path even deeper, breaking the shadows apart like dandelions in a windstorm. the figure snarled. You think you found courage? This is just the beginning. You have barely scratched the surface. Maybe, Bob breathed, summoning memories of laughter, love, and joy. He felt the boy's courage surge through him, and with that power, he pushed forward, stepping firmly into the void where shadows writhed mournfully, the ground shook violently. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, threatening to pull him apart. Brace yourself! He shouted, their hands intertwined, together, they breached the rift, each pulse of the light throwing back the shadows, illuminating the specters that once loomed so large in his life. In that moment, Bob felt the weight of every interaction, every shadow, every scar, all of it was choices. Choices he made, but choices he could still change. See it for what it truly is. He shouted to the creature, you're made of nothing but my fear. At that, the entity lunged, reaching for the boy, an attempt to sever their bond and claim Bob for the darkness. Bob gasped but stood firm. You cannot take him. He's my hope. Our hope. He gripped the amulet like a lifeline, the shadows shrieked as rays of brilliance pulsed from the amulet, cascading over the landscape, driving back the darkness as fresh waves of determination surged through him. Shadows howled and writhed, each trying to resist, but the light surged brighter still. Together, Bob and the boy screamed, their voices melding into a single battle cry that shattered the former holds of both time and space. The shadows buckled beneath the swell of light before exploding outward in a rush of dark vapor. As silence settled in, the remnants of darkness dissipated, leaving behind only the echoes of their cries. A cleansing absence felt. Bob squared his shoulders, panting heavily, sweat dripping down his back. The boy's eyes sparkled with unshed tears, but there was no fear, just triumph. They had faced the shadows and come out unscathed. It wasn't just survival, it was a reclamation of self. We did it, Bob whispered, shaking with emotion, we faced the truth together. A soft smile illuminated the boy's features, his small hand squeezing Bob's. We can face anything now. In that moment, they stood united, past and future interwoven in the bonds of courage and healing. The path ahead shimmered with possibility, and as the horizon opened up before them, Bob felt a stirring resolve ignite in his heart. Together, they set forth into the infinite future, ready to embrace every story, every challenge that still lay ahead. This was no longer just about the hunt, this was about life, and they were ready to forge their own path. Now I want you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and tell the world about the magic we've created together. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what you've just read. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They'll thank you for it. Your involvement is what keeps this community alive.